Welcome to Doing Business Gently. If you're a woman over 50 who has built a business alongside personal health challenges, caregiving, and the ever-changing world of entrepreneurship, you are in the right place. I'm your host, Marta, and on this show, we talk about building a simple and sustainable business that fits your current season of life and doing that gently from a place of rest. Today, we are continuing our series on rest and the chronically capable entrepreneur and why we need to find time for rest. We need to make time for it because we are knowledge-based workers. And frequently, all too frequently, we are over-leveraging the greatest asset, our minds, our brains, and that thinking power that we have. And we discount the energy required to do that type of work. When we don't make time for mental rest and give those little gray cells a break, it's no wonder that we are tired. We feel overwhelmed and often unfocused or unmotivated. I know this firsthand, and it's something I have needed to address since my first day in business. As a college student, as I entered the workforce and was in the corporate world for a long time, I taught myself how to be a workaholic. And that trait just got translated over to my business. And I found myself creating another job for myself. And I was over leveraging this mental asset that I had of serving my clients, of troubleshooting, of design and coaching, and all the things that went in, let alone just running the business. I found myself working long days, 6 days a week. And it wasn't until I learned and fully understood the power of rest, why it's a necessity, and changed my mindset from viewing it as a someday maybe I'll get to it when I can thing, and actually started making plans for intentional rest in my schedule, specifically for mental rest. That's when things finally changed. A lot of times what we need, and this is the reason I'm starting with this idea of mental rest, is that we need a break. We are consuming information. We are learning new things. We are serving our clients. We are creating new outputs, whether we're coaching a client, writing an article, doing a podcast. We are using our brains so much in our coaching and our serving, and we don't always remember to give ourselves a break because we are chronically capable. This is a conversation we just recently had in the Gentle Business Mastermind, that we are chronically capable entrepreneurs and women who are nurturers, caregivers, oftentimes people pleasers. We're wanting to take care of our clients. We want to make sure that the business is running. We want to take care of our loved ones. We want to make sure that our homes are maintained. And if you have a dog, there's a whole other layer of taking care of your pet. And so when you are doing all of that, a lot of times you are tired and you don't even know why. Because we are over leveraging the way we operate and how much energy we're using to think and create and do all day long, that our brains oftentimes are taxed. And if we don't take the time to take a break, to take a pause, to take that breath, we get stuck in our heads. Those swirling thoughts, those racing thoughts don't slow down. And our brain, which is our mental processing center and manages everything from overthinking to emotional overload, gets overwhelmed. And you'll find that when you're in that overwhelm, it can show up as indecision, reactivity, irritability, or spinning in circles, or staring at your laptop and realizing you've been sitting there for a long time. You can't think clearly in a fog, and things go from frustrating to a lot worse a lot of times. But what do? We keep going. We put one foot in front of the other. We go try to get the job done. Or we try to pack a lot into one day and crash the next day. That also came up in the mastermind. How many of us do that? We have this go, 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 crash way of working. Go, 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 get it done, crash. And so we're not looking at rest in terms as a strategic puzzle piece in our business, in our schedule, in our day. We're still thinking about rushing and getting it done, and then I'll rest when I've earned it, or I'll rest when I think maybe the time is right. And then also as another layer, When we think of rest, we think of self-care. And self-care in so many instances now looks like something you check off of your to-do list. That is not true self-care. So when you think about the type of rest that you need, in this case, mental rest, what do you do? How do you add this into your schedule, into your business plan? Thankfully, it's very easy. And there's a lot of little things that you could do in a day to give yourself some mental rest in order to keep doing what you do simply and sustainably and stewarding your mental energy and that mental asset, that beautiful brain of yours that is an asset of your business and what you do, and making sure that you are giving it a break. Our brains are not meant to hold every single amount of detail, and that's what we do with it. We try to keep track of doctor's appointments, vet appointments, meal plans, doctor's appointments for not only us, but for our family members. And if you are a caregiver for somebody in your family, a lot of us are caregivers for our parents, then you've got their doctor's appointments, their medications, their needs. And then you've got to remember that you have appointments in your business. You have projects that you're working on. You have deadlines to meet. There's so much going on in our brains, and it's trying to do what we ask it to do and remember it all. And that alone is exhausting. Let's look at a few ways that you can add rest, intentional rest, into your day, into your schedule, and make it part of your business plan. So here's a few questions. Are you leaving enough room between Zoom calls and client calls? Do you limit how many Zoom chats or Zoom calls you can do in a day? And I'm talking specifically about Zoom because a lot of us are doing Zoom calls, video calls, client calls, and Zoom fatigue is a real thing. So make sure that you're giving yourself that margin and that space to step back. I've actually gotten to the point where after a mastermind call, I now have on my calendar that I schedule at least a half an hour break after those sessions, because they are an hour to an hour and a half. They can be very intense. And if I don't give myself a break, a lot of times I just find myself staring at my computer or going and looking for a distraction, trying to get that quick dopamine hit that will get me motivated to start moving forward again. And I even have a note in my calendar that says, no YouTube, no computer, walk away from the desk. You need a break. And so that's another way that you can give yourself a break, is leaving your desk, your office, changing your scenery on a regular basis. Maybe sometimes if you have a standing desk, sometimes it's standing up to work, sometimes it's sitting down. Sometimes for me, it is simply taking my dog Mochi outside to go walk around the yard a little bit. Let her sniff, getting out there to feel the breeze, hear the birds. And then also keeping a central place to jot down notes and ideas, because we are trying to capture and keep everything in our heads, trying not to lose it. And so if we have a system in place, it can be simply an index card that you have in your pocket. It could be a page that you have in your planner. It could be a note on your phone. Some place where you can capture down these ideas so that you do not have to try to keep it all in your head, and it will give your brain a quick relief. And one of my favorites is brain dumping. So again, stop trying to remember everything that is going on and everything you're trying to remember, and find a place to just sit there for a few minutes and let it all out. One of my favorite things to do when I'm opening up a coaching call, or especially in our mastermind, we start with what's called an ADMAR. And ADMAR is ADMAR, and it stands for Alive, Draining, Moments, Aware, and Release. I can visually see women come in with their shoulders scrunched up by their ears, and we do this process of just kind of letting it go, taking a break before we dive into this important conversation. I can see their shoulders relax. I can see their whole posture relax. I'll leave a link in the show notes on how to do your own ADMAR. It can take as little as 5 minutes, but the mental release of just letting things out, very similar to a brain dump, is really quite something. This was a big mastermind call this week, and we dove in deep onto a lot of topics, and especially about this idea of rest and capacity, and what does that all mean for us as entrepreneurs. And one of the gals said, you know what, I didn't Admar yesterday. I did an Admar this morning. She goes, been feeling a little bit of stress. And so I've been doing the Admar. And when you are able to find some sort of system like that, some sort of quick, easy ritual, that is mental release. That is mental rest. It's giving your brain a break. Instead of trying to hold it all in, you're letting it all out. A couple other things I'd like you to consider are doing a gratitude practice, a daily gratitude practice, because gratitude can change you and your business if you let it. It helps you look at things differently. You get to the point where you're actually looking for things to write down on your list that you're grateful for, because they're very easy to miss. And then also, I want you to think about mental margin, where you are actually physically stepping away from whatever you're doing in the moment, whether that is in your personal life or in your business life. Just stepping away for a few minutes to breathe deep, to go brew a cup of tea or pour a cup of coffee, or coloring, or just sitting in silence for a few minutes and allowing your brain to slow down. A lot of us need to get out of our thinking brain, because when we're stuck in our thinking brain, we're cut off from our emotional selves. And that's not a healthy place to be either. But because our brains are so busy and it's always going, that we get stuck in our thinking brain, and it cuts off the rest of us. And we are holistic beings. We are not just mental or emotional or physical or spiritual or entrepreneurs. We need to view ourselves as a whole unit. And when you're over leveraging one part of your being, the other parts are suffering. So when you are noticing in your own life that your mental capacity has been met, that you've maxed yourself out, I want you to think about this. And this is something that I am learning. I'm still in the process of learning. But capacity is not fixed. It is resource dependent. So when you feel like I don't have the capacity, I don't have it in me to do this, sometimes we call it, I feel like I'm burning out. A lot of times this is a sign of misalignment. Misalignment with how you're investing your time and your energy. And when you are thinking, I've reached my max point, I can't do it, that's often not the true limit. It's more a reflection of your depleted resources, that maybe you've overdone it for a season, or on one day you got a lot done and the next day you felt exhausted. And most importantly, it's a lack of recovery time, because deep work requires deep rest. One of my favorite quotes from psychologist and author Andy Kolber, she posted that on Instagram years ago, and I actually wrote it down, because if you are doing the deep work of using your brain to serve your clients, run your business, care for your loved one, manage your household, we get lost in the process. We get covered up in the needs of everyone else. But if you are doing that type of deep work, you need to make time for deep rest. So if you are doing a lot of video calls on one day, maybe you need to limit them. Either that, or the next day, cross off that there's no video calls on this day. Because otherwise, if you keep pushing yourself mentally, you're going to feel exhausted. You're going to feel like you're burning out. But when you look at it, it's a misalignment of how you're investing your time and your mental energy to get everything done and ignoring your own needs. So I hope that once you hear this, one, know that you're not alone. Most of us do it in one way or the other. It's not something that's unfixable. It's really not a true limit. It is how we're perceiving, how we're using our time and our energy, and not prioritizing our own needs and addressing that and pushing ourselves through instead. So when you are at your max, when you are feeling overwhelmed, your capacity has been drained temporarily by your pace, by your investment, by your perspective, because capacity expands and contracts based on how you pace yourself and how well you recover. And it's something you can learn. I don't want you to be discouraged by this, because I can tell a difference when I now know that I need to take a break after a long Zoom call, or a client call. I know I need to limit how many of those calls I do a day. I know I have a certain time of day that I work better than I do at other times of day. It's a learning process. It is something to experiment with, but it is fixable. But you have to be aware you have the problem to begin with in order to start fixing it. And that's one of the reasons that I'm starting here with mental rest, because so many of us ignore our need for mental rest. And I encourage you to decide today, how are you going to give yourself mental rest today? Not tomorrow, not next week, today. Because once you start experiencing what mental rest can do for you, and that you find that you're able to do things more simply and sustainably, and that you're becoming a better steward of your time and energy, you're going to want to do more of it. So just wanted to encourage you on that this is fixable. When you feel exhausted, you need to take a break. So as you go through this series, if you're thinking about, well, mental rest may not be exactly describing my situation, but where do I start? I would suggest you check out my rest quiz at itstartswithrest.com/quiz. Just a few questions. It'll take maybe a minute or two, and you'll get a personalized report of the type of rest that you need. And you can have that with you as you listen to these episodes on the different types of rest, why we need it, what happens when we don't meet our needs for rest, and what are some simple things that you can do immediately to give yourself the type of rest that you need. Again, that quiz is at itstartswithrest.com/quiz. And join me in the next episode, because we're going to explore a different type of rest. And we're going to dive a little bit deeper again to what it looks like when you're not meeting that type of rest. What is the impact on you personally and in your business? And what are some simple things you can do to incorporate that type of rest into your day and into your schedule? I'll see you in the next episode.